Welcome to Veterans Chronicles. I'm Greg Columbus. Honored to be joined today aboard the USS Midway in San Diego, California by Terrence Bucklew. Terry is a U.S. Army veteran of the Vietnam War, spent 20 months in country, and served as a sergeant ultimately in the U.S. Army. And sir, thank you very much for your time today.
Sure.
Where were you born and raised, sir?
I was born in Florida. I was raised in the U.S. Air Force.
So you're a military brat.
I am.
What did your dad do in the service?
He was a B-36 pilot.
And was he in World War II or Korea?
He was in World War II, Korea. When he was finally got out of the Air Force, he flew for the CIA. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. Yeah, Air America.
It's probably declassified by now.
I'm sure it is.
Hopefully. So was his service influential in, well, no, actually I know this because you were drafted, unlike others.
I was drafted. He actually told me what I really needed to do because the draft was coming down in '68 was to go and enlist in the Army. Didn't think the Air Force was a good idea. In the Army and go to flight school. I did and I didn't. Obviously, I got drafted first, but I did get a chance to qualify for flight school, and they wouldn't let me fly because of my eyes. I could be a crew chief. I could be a gunner. I could do all that stuff, but I couldn't fly it. And I went, nah, I don't want to do that.
They had some pretty stringent standards, didn't they?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Slightest bit of nearsightedness, and you were.
Yeah, just a little. And it's been that way most of my life, except for when I was a commercial fisherman.
So what did they have you do?
I went to a communication school. My MOS was a 72B20, and I was supposed to be working in a comm center. And I graduated 10th in my class, and they said, man, or 6th in my class, and you have 10 spots in the world that you can choose from. And they'll all be civilian status. So I picked Rome, Italy, Addis Ababa, or wherever you pronounce it, Ethiopia. I was supposed to be a good duty station. And the last one I went, God, you know what? I think they're going to send me to Vietnam anyway. So I said, Tan Son Nhut. And that's where I went. Matter of fact, all 240 guys in my class were on the airplane with me when we went to Vietnam. Every one of us.
So the preference question was kind of a formality.
Yeah, formality. Yeah, with a smile on their lips, you know.
So you flew over there, and what happens then?
I should have been an extra in one of the John Wayne movies. We flew in country. Gosh, I want to say it was the 15th or 16th of October in '68, and we were supposed to land in Tan Son Nhut, and they waved us off. We circled the runway for about an hour, circled, and they waved us off, said, can't take you in, we're getting shelled. And so then they sent us to Da Nang. So we flew up to Da Nang, and Da Nang said, we can't take you. And they said, well, somebody's got to take us because we're running out of fuel. I mean, that's basically, you know, the guy was real honest with us on the airplane, the pilot. And so we circled Da Nang for about 45 minutes, and then they sent us to Cam Ranh Bay. And we were in the flight pattern, and they called us off because there was a bunch of rocket explosions going on around the airfield. And he said, you can't come in, can't land. He goes, we're coming in, we ain't got nothing. And we landed in the middle of that.
What was that like?
Like I said, should have been an extra in a John Wayne war movie, because they took it all the way down the end of the runway, pulled to the side, and down at the end of the runway there was a big berm. And they pulled to the side, dropped all the chutes. We slid down, climbed up the berm, right into a ditch. And then that ditch led over to the tent, the welcoming tent for all new incoming recruits.
It's quite an introduction.
Yeah, and we were there about, 12, 15 hours. So they were, because everybody was supposed to go, they had orders to go to different units. Mine was a comm center. I had a fairly high clearance, and so I worked crypto, and I never saw the inside of a comm center. I never saw the inside of anything that had to do with communications. When I got there, they lined us all up and they said, well, we're giving you new orders, so let me have your orders, so we got everything here and we'll give them back to you. And I looked at the first sergeant and I went, well, Top, I don't think I can give these to you because they're top secret. And he went, son, how long do you want to stand in this sun? And I looked at him and went, I think he really does have a point, I mean, I was as cocky as anybody else. I handed over my orders. Never saw the inside of a comm center. Yeah.
So where did they put you?
They sent me to Night Support Battalion of the 198th Infantry Brigade. And that's a story in its own. They, at the same school, 72B20, and I don't know what the MOS was for field wiremen, but they're the ones that have to climb, the pole climbers for the electric companies and the telephone companies. And we used to march to our classrooms every morning and watch these guys trying to get up a pole. And it always kind of made us laugh, like, man, I ain't doing that anywhere there are flying bullets. So the first thing I ever did was climb a pole and fix a wire. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, other than there's two wires up there and you split them, you splice them, and you tie them together and you get down as quick as you can. So I did that for, a couple of weeks before we had our first attack on our little compound. And I can tell you this, I didn't want to do that. When a 30 caliber MiG starts up and you see the dirt flying and pieces of trees flying out, and it starts hitting your pole, and you're up 30 feet. And I came down as much as I could on my gaffs, and then undid my line and pulled my gaffs, and I fell about 15, 18 feet.
Were you injured?
Kinda. They put me on light duty for 2 weeks till my back wasn't hurting quite as much. You got to remember, 1968, what do you think they had for pain?
Morphine?
No.
Aspirin?
Yeah. There wasn't any Advil and there wasn't any Tylenol. At least not over there where we were. I had, I don't even know when I first learned about Tylenol or, Advil. So that was my first real experience. It was like, you got to be kidding me. It was like we're sitting ducks out here. So I told him I didn't like doing that. I said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, anything but standing out in the open. I don't like that. So I did a couple of convoys. I rode shotgun on convoys to a little place 11 miles south of us, south of Chulai, called Bucklew. The 11th Infantry Brigade was stationed down there, and it was a hot zone. And once a week, we'd do a convoy down there for supplies. And our path would take us through a place called Milai. Actually, Songmai, because Milai was a little village. There were three, if I remember correctly, there were three of them. One on one side of the hamlet of Songmai, and then two others, and Milai was one of them. And this was in probably November of '68. And every time we went through there, we got hit. Every time. So a little history means May of 1968 was when they had the Milai Massacre. That's what they called it. They forgot to talk about all the guys that they killed. The Viet Cong attacking our forces. I don't condone, nor do I condemn what's going on. We were at war, and there's some harrowing stories out there.
What's that like to come under fire, like you were just saying?
You ever peed your pants? That was, I didn't eat a whole lot while I was over there because I didn't like the food. But yeah, it's pretty scary in the beginning. You know, I resolved myself that I wasn't going to come back alive anyway by that time. And I think my attitude started changing. And it wasn't a cocky attitude. It was just, you know, if it's there, it's there. I'll never feel it. I'll never hear it. And if I do hear it, I'll never remember it, you know. But it was just a matter of survival, day to day. You never planned anything for the next day because you didn't know whether you'd be there or not. So I just decided, you know what, they tell me what to do, I'm going to go do it.
What kind of things did they want you to do?
Well, I did a lot of field wireman work, whether I liked it or not. They dropped us in on an LZ one time, and I didn't have anything but an M79 grenade launcher and a .45 hanging on my belt. But I had two big, large rolls of field wire to go out and string wire for claymore mines and for communication. And fortunately, they'd give me a couple of guys to be my backup, my guys that were watching out for me, because I couldn't fire back if we got hit. I did a few of those, and did a couple more convoys, and then they asked for a volunteer to a place or to a unit called Chulai Defense Command, and I volunteered. I had met the colonel that was the CO of CLDC, and I'd met him earlier, and he was impressed enough to take me on site. And Chulai Defense Command was a brand new unit. It was a bastard unit. Over there, there's no supply line. Supply lines are tough, even when you're in a unit that has designation, and you know, like the 9th Support Battalion or the 198th Infantry Brigade. I mean, you're getting all kinds of stuff, but we didn't have that. But they put us up in hooches, and I can't tell you what they called it, but it was in the middle of the runways at Chulai. I can show you where it is on a map. I've Googled the old maps. I think I did it, I don't know, 15, 18 years ago. And it's now an international airport. But it doesn't look any different than when I was there. It looks like there's hooches and tents and all kinds of stuff all over the place, just like it was then. Or then, 18 years ago. And but our job was to control and secure the bunker line for Chulai, which ran from, I can't tell you the name of the point, but it was out towards the Anton River on the right-hand side where the Coast Guard was, all the way up probably about 10 miles, and then straight across the peninsula, and then down towards a place called Batanga Peninsula. And at one time somebody told me that Chulai had the longest beach in the world, 26 miles. And it was long. I don't know if it was 26 miles or not, but it was a big beach. But that was our purview.
Much more of our conversation with Terry Bucklew, a U.S. Army veteran of the Vietnam War, when we come back on Veterans Chronicles. This is Veterans Chronicles. I'm Greg Corombos. Back now to our conversation with Terry Bucklew, a U.S. Army veteran of the Vietnam War. We spoke with him aboard the USS Midway Museum in San Diego. And we pick up the conversation with Mr. Bucklew explaining the frequency of enemy attempts to break his line and the very troubling strategy they used in trying to do it.
All the time. Men, women, and children. They used anybody and everybody. And who's they? The Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese, and the people that were in charge. So, yeah, you tell me.
What were your rules of engagement, when, especially involving women and children?
They changed all the time. Almost permanently they changed when Westmoreland became commanding general of, I think he started at I Corps, and then he became the big muckety muck of the whole Vietnam War. And his first order to us was no loaded weapons on the bunker line. You had to have a clear chamber, and you could have the clip sitting next to you. But if you saw movement, you had to call the officer of the day. You had to wait for him to come down, see what you saw, and you couldn't fire off a flare. He had to do that. So he had to confirm that you saw what you saw, and then he would make a decision. And believe me, he felt the same way we did, because he had better know what he was getting into to say open fire or to hold back. So you can imagine that did cost us a number of guys. Because by the time the Viet Cong had come through the fence, they'd take out a bunker or two. Sometimes a sapper would get through and go to a hooch and blow himself up. So it wasn't like they were trying to attack the whole base and take it down, because it was huge. But any little thing they could do was disruptive. So that's kind of the way they fought their little war.
So you were constantly missing opportunities by having to run it up the chain of command.
Yeah, opportunities. That's a good word, isn't it? Yes.
Or the threats would grow while you waited for...
It grew exponentially all the time. And as long as he was in charge, that was what would happen. Not my favorite person in the world.
I can see why. How did you defend yourself if you didn't have permission to defend yourself?
You know, I didn't have to. But I know that there's a couple of guys that were killed or wounded, and I never got to ask them, you know, what are you doing to defend yourself? I have no idea. Later on, it didn't matter to me. I loaded my weapon anyway. I didn't think I'd ever come back alive, but I wasn't going to kill myself. And that's all that is suicide. So, yeah, the rules of war, of engagement, when they come down from above, I don't know who they're making them for. Because they're sure not making them for us. If they're going to fight a war, you fight a war. You get it done because there's only one option, and that's to win. That's what they're doing. All I need to do is point to the Ukraine today. Look at what the Russians are doing. And the Ukrainians, God bless them, they're fighting. They're fighting good, and I appreciate that from them. Wish I could go over there.
How long did you stay along that bunker line?
Well, I left in June of '70, and I think I was. They disbanded July Defense Command for whatever reason. I have no idea. And I think that was in January or February '70, and they attached me to the headquarters company of 16th Combat Air Group. And I got to fly a few times, got to experience being a door gunner. Not what I ever wanted to do. I mean, I thought it was something, okay, you know, I'll try that. Oh man, I want to tell you. It's like being a balloon at a you know, the sharpshooting thing at a carnival. That was no way. I think I did 3 runs, and there's no way in the world.
So you're a target up there.
Those guys, they are fearless. They are fearless. The guys that fly those things, and man, they're fearless. Now, tell me, how are the rules of engagement going to help them?
They had the same rules?
I don't know. I never did. Not up there, but I'm just saying, it's hypothetical. Rules of engagement, you got to be kidding. You get shot at, you shoot back. You know, that should be the rules of engagement. If you see somebody with a rifle pointing at you and he hasn't fired yet, you better shoot, because he probably has you in his sights. So I'm just going to say, I'm not a warmonger, but don't send me to war if you don't want me to win. You know, I think most warriors are like that. They don't necessarily want to be there. That's not, you know, the thing that they really want to be doing is killing other people. But man, if you're gonna do it, and you're gonna send me, let me do it. Let me do the job.
You were mentioning that your superior officer, who had to come down and check out your situation, was supportive of your frustrations. Was this something where he kind of gave you an unwritten rule that you could fire back, and he just wouldn't report it up the chain and he would have your back?
I don't remember that ever happening. And we were fairly close to all of our junior officers that led us. I don't recall that ever being that like that. I mean, I do recall one captain that was a by-the-books kind of guy. That's what he did. And but he was always there. He was always there for us and always supporting us. He let us vent, but, you know, only to a certain point. He's an officer. So, yeah, I don't remember that really coming up, that somebody said, you know, don't worry about it. You know, I just did it on my own. If he walked in, I unclicked it. That's all. Did I have a round in it? Yeah, I did. But I was ready.
Were most of the others doing the same thing?
No. There were a few of us, but not a lot. Most guys were stoned. That makes you, let me tell you, it's one of the biggest frustrations I ever had over there. And I think it's what made me change my attitude to being, I wasn't going to kill myself. Because a lot of guys did get loaded. And it was unfortunate. There was a lot of drugs going around. And I can't say that I didn't have my drug of choice, which was booze. I mean, I was probably a functional, alcoholic. But I never went to sleep on guard duty. Let's put it that way. And I didn't go tweeting off to the trees when I was on guard duty. And I had quite a few. Yeah, I can say this because I don't remember any of those guys. I don't remember their names. There's a couple guys that I remember their faces. Sometimes they come to me in a dream. I remember a couple of names, but putting them to a face that might come up into my dream, I have no idea. I lived from minute to minute. And I did get wounded. A rocket attack, and the rocket exploded next to, or out in front of the Jeep that I was driving, blew us off into a culvert. And I was thrown out of the Jeep and ripped the top of my head, and they left me for dead, actually. I woke up in a body bag in the middle of the night, sitting next to the Jeep, laying next to the Jeep, and it was all chained up and locked and completely destroyed. And I'm laying on the ground with this body bag, and I'm going, what in the hell am I doing? What is going on? And I could not remember. I couldn't remember nothing. Matter of fact, I think it took me 5, 6, 7 years before I even remembered what I was doing that caused me to be next to that Jeep. So it was a pretty heavy duty wound. During rainy season, so you got the top over top of it. And when we hit the culvert, I was thrown out of it, and I think I ripped it on the top. The metal pieces that hold the canvas on. All I'm doing is conjecture. I have no idea.
Were you able to unzip the bag, or did you have to wait till the morning?
Yeah, no. I unzipped the bag. I was sitting on, I don't even know what maybe a rock, and the MPs showed up, and it was late in the evening, and they showed up and so what are you doing here? I said, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. Well, where'd you come from? I said, man, I don't know. I don't know where in the hell I am. I don't know where I came from, and I don't know why I'm here. Then one of the MPs with the light on says, God, this guy's he's bloody, So they looked at me, and I had all the blood and I'm matted, and so they took me to the hospital. I was like, God, you could have been thrown on one of them trucks. Not me. You're not getting me on one of those. I didn't know where I was. I don't know what the hell was going on. I had no idea. I didn't even know what happened to the two guys that were in the Jeep with me. You know how long it took me to remember that? 2 or 3 years.
They never told you?
No. 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 All of us were supposed to be leaving the unit. We were supposed to be going back home. You know, they don't send you in mass. They send you one at a time, seniority first. And by the time I got out of the hospital, I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. They're gone. What are you going to do? Have them come back and tell you? I don't even remember their names. And that's, so yeah, I don't remember a whole lot. Except fighting, staying alive. So, I mean, I wasn't in the infantry. I tell you that right now. I mean, I wasn't in the infantry. We did a couple of ambushes. We did, we actually quite a few. I ran ambushes for about 2.5 months. But I wasn't in the infantry. Like the Marines in Quezon. I wasn't in the infantry like the guys down in Duck Fo. I mean, those guys are out hunting. They were hunter-killers. All we were doing was just defending the base that we had. That was our job. Our job was not to go out hunting and killing.
When we come back, we'll conclude our conversation with Terry Bucklew, a U.S. Army veteran of the Vietnam War. I'm Greg Corombos. Please stay with us. This is Veterans Chronicles. I'm Greg Corombos. Our guest in this edition is Terry Bucklew, a U.S. Army veteran of the Vietnam War, who we spoke with aboard the USS Midway Museum in San Diego. And as we neared the conclusion of our visit, Mr. Bucklew described how he assembled the ambush teams he led on night missions against the enemy, and the struggle that still continues as he considers the legacy of Vietnam and what he considers a job left unfinished.
I picked my men, no more than 8 at a time. All we were doing was covering a pathway that would come towards our bunker during a specific time of night. Usually we would leave right at sunset, dark, and then go around about our way to get to the pathway that we're going to set it up, and just set up an ambush. I didn't carry an M16, I carried an M14. I was much more comfortable with an M14. I was a qualified expert, so that's what I took. So I usually took on the rear position, and I was usually up above everybody else, so I knew where everybody was. And quite often, you would sit there freaking all night long till 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's not the path they used. I mean, we knew all the paths, but that was just what you do to defend where you're at. We got lucky a few times, and were able to thwart an attack on the bunker line.
Sir, I can obviously tell how raw and personal this still is. So as you look back now, 50 years later, what does your service mean to you?
Didn't finish the job. I think most of us are. I don't want to use the word proud, but I don't know a better word. But it's an inner pride that I went. I did the job that was asked of me. But we didn't finish it. And boy, I get almost as emotional thinking about the boys in Afghanistan. Because I know, pretty sure they feel the same way.
Well, what does it mean to you now, whether it's folks you meet here on the Midway or elsewhere, who have a appreciation for your service, an appreciation you perhaps did not receive when you came home? I don't know in your case in particular, but...
Oh boy, when I got here, now when I finally left Vietnam, I left there and flew into Seattle, Tacoma. There was a protest right outside of the airport, against the war. And so it wasn't like, and they told us right away, they said, you know what, we got another way for you to leave. So you don't have to go out there. There were a lot of guys that went, nah, I'll take my chances and whatever. And they wanted to send me to, actually, I was supposed to go to Florida, where my mother was, got an older brother there. And they didn't have a flight for 3 days to McCoy. I said, so, just off the top of my head, I said, so what do you got going south? And he goes, well, I got a C-130 sitting on the tarmac right now. And he's headed for Norton Air Force Base, Southern California. I said, is that close to San Diego? He says, oh yeah, it's about an hour away, hour and a half. I said, put me on that plane. So because my oldest brother and my younger brother just below me, they were in Coronado at that time. And so I said, put me on that airplane. I'll go to Coronado. I'll work this out another way. And so I did. I flew, actually, there were only 5 of us on a C-1. Actually, it wasn't a C-130, it was a C-141. I don't know if you know, but at that time, it was the largest cargo aircraft. It's like C-5A, except that it was half that size. But still huge. But there were only 5 of us. And I got to sit next to a full bird colonel that was just coming home from Vietnam. And he says to me, he goes, Bucklew. He goes, and it was Air Force. He goes, I've been in the Air Force an awful long time. He says, and I used to know a guy named Bucklew. And I said, yeah? Harry L? And he goes, that's exactly who, yeah, he used to fly B-36s when I was at Offutt. So, yeah, it's a small world sometimes, So it was, and I'm just coming back from Vietnam, so I couldn't even tell you. I had tunnel vision, but I could see behind my head. It was, you're that raw. And just being on that airplane for 2.5 hours really smoothed out a lot of stuff for me, talking to him. So that was kind of cool. And then I took a bus down to Coronado and had my brother come over. And it was just after the bridge opened, because we went over the bridge, and the first time I'd been in Coronado, we had to take the ferry. So I'm up there on top of the world, man, and I'm going, God, get me off this bridge. This thing's going to fall over. So I came down to Coronado, and I was supposed to go to Texas for my last duty station, Fort Hood, to train guys to go to Vietnam. So I called the Pentagon and I talked to a major. Now I can't even remember his name now. And he was in personnel. I gave him all the information he needed to know, and I said, Major, I do not want to go to Fort Hood, Texas, and train anybody to go die. Send me back. I'll go back. He goes, you know what? I think we need to talk about this first. And he said, if I can get you a duty station that's acceptable to you, would you take that? I said, where are you thinking? He goes, where are you thinking? I said, find me something in California. 2 days later, that was on a Friday, so it's Monday. He calls me and says, I'm sending your orders to this place up in San Pedro. He says, you go up there, you drive up there next week, and you talk to the guy up there. If you want the job, you got it. And that's where I spent my last 7 or 8 months, 9 months, whatever it was. It was up in San Pedro. Guess what I was doing?
What?
Oh, come on, guess. You get 3 guesses and the first 2 don't count.
Communications.
Put me in a comm center. Put me in a top secret comm center and said, so this is your MOS. And I went, yeah, but guys, I haven't seen a crypto machine in 2 years. You know, it all worked out, believe me.
It was better than Fort Hood.
It was better than Fort Hood, and now that I look back on it, it was a heck of a lot better than going back to Vietnam. So, yeah.
Terry, I can't thank you enough for your service to our country. I know it hasn't been easy to tell your story today, so I want to thank you for doing that as well. And I know our viewers and our listeners will appreciate it and get a better sense of what it was like to serve there, and we thank you for that.
Yeah. I just hope nobody else has to go. But, it happens. And it's going to happen. I appreciate you taking the time. This wasn't easy coming in here.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Makes me appreciate you even more, so thank you. Terrence Bucklew is a U.S. Army veteran of the Vietnam War. I'm Greg Corumbus. This is Veterans Chronicles. Hi, this is Greg Corumbus, and thanks for listening to Veterans Chronicles, a presentation of the American Veterans Center. For more information, please visit AmericanVeteransCenter.org. You can also follow the American Veterans Center on Facebook, and on Twitter, we're at AVC Update. Subscribe to the American Veterans Center YouTube channel for full oral histories and special features, and of course, please subscribe to the Veterans Chronicles podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and please join us next time for Veterans Chronicles.